Hello, it's Sue Anstis here, and just before you listen to this episode of The Game Changers, I wanted to quickly tell you that my new documentary, Game On, The Unstoppable Rise of Women's Sport, is now available to watch on Netflix in the UK. It's a powerful film that explores the recent growth in women's sport and its impact across society. It will open your eyes to the challenges faced by female athletes and bring hope for a future where women and girls have equal access and opportunity in sport. I really hope you enjoy it. Now it's time for the Game Changers. Hello and welcome to the Game Changers. I'm Sue Anstis, and this is the podcast where we hear from trailblazing women in sport who are challenging the status quo for women and girls everywhere. What can we learn from their journeys as we explore important equality issues in sport and beyond? I'd like to start with a big thank you to our partners Sport England, who support the Game Changers through a National Lottery Award. I'm so excited to introduce my guest today, Molly McCann, a professional mixed martial artist who currently competes in UFC in the women's flyweight division. Meatball Molly, as she is known, fought for the MMA promotion Shock and Awe, where she won the Flyweight Championship and defended it. She also won the Cage Warriors Women's Flyweight Championship in 2018. Molly then signed with UFC, where she made a real name for herself in the flyweight division with multiple finishes, including her two iconic spinning elbow knockouts. In 2022, Molly was shortlisted for BT Sports Action Women Awards, which is where we got to meet for the first time. So Molly, your next UFC fight is on July the 22nd at the O2 in London. How are you doing generally with preparations for that?
Well, if I ever have an autobiography, you're definitely going to have to be the one who reads it on the audio book because your voice is amazing. I'm taking it all in my stride. I feel like there's a few of us in the UFC who have to push the media train because we have a bit of personality, and that's me. That's me. So I've just been away for a few days doing a lot of media, but I suppose these are the moments you probably prayed for when you was a little girl. You know, when you was thinking, "Oh, I want to be like that." You don't realise that side of the coin and that side of the career, and that's what you have to do. But you have to be good at selling the fight, promoting the fight, and being skilled when you're in there. So it's a big operation. It's a lot to do, but it was really big for me, I think, the last 2 days, just because I was the first MMA fighter to be invited onto Warner Radio nationwide. I was on a few of the channels, and none of the men or no other women have had that opportunity yet. So I enjoyed that one. I've got a good face for radio. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. I'm really chomping at the bit to get back out there. As you know, I had a bit of a ruthless fight in November where it just did not go my way. So I am extremely motivated for July 22nd.
And how do you balance then that timing of all the media and those demands on your time with training as well too at the same time?
To me, it's you learn. You've got to learn how to do it. I feel like this is fight number 11 in the UFC for me, and people never even get past 4 bouts. Do you know what I mean? So it's a lot of learning on the job, and I used to give as much energy to the interviews as I would to training, and then I realised you've got nothing left. You're running on fumes for your training, and what I've realised is you can put time and effort into your answers, and creating a story and giving light and shade to it without completely emptying yourself of energy and awareness. And I really tried that. Like, I was on Tuesday and sparred, then got a shower, then went to Manchester, done the work at ITV, Media City and round all of them and BBC. And then got to London, done bits in London, and then I had about 12 hours non-stop in London, and then got the train home, got home for about 11:45, and then was up at 7 back in the gym sparring this morning, and had really good rounds, which I'm surprising myself, I suppose, but as you get older, I think you just learn to manage your energy systems and know what to give to and what not to.
No, that's good. Well, I'm very grateful you're giving us time here. It does feel like it's been, quite a momentous few weeks in terms of just following you on social media, seeing all the places you are. You're obviously fighting back in the UK, and you fought in some amazing venues around the world. So how different does that feel to you to be fighting back here?
I love it. I think I fought in Vegas 2 or 3 times, Boston, New York, Liverpool, London, Brazil. I fought in iconic venues. The O2 and myself have got a real a love relationship. I've had 3 fights there, 3 big wins. I broke my orbital bone in one and nearly went blind. Became the first English woman to win in the UFC, and then the one after, I got the first spinning back elbow a woman's ever thrown, and the 4th ever in combat history. And then I went back again in July and got exactly the same. And the fans get me and I get them. When you go to a UFC event, from the first fight to walk to the last fight who fights, everyone's given the best every time that they get in there. And when I walk out, the crowd knows I'm willing to leave my life in there if I have to. And I think they really appreciate that. So, yeah, I'm not a boring fighter. I might not always get the win, but I'm not a boring fighter.
And obviously, MMA's got a massive following, especially UFC, but many of our listeners might not be as familiar with the sport. So can you just give us a little bit of background to it, and I guess the combination of different disciplines it brings in?
Yeah, I feel like it would have previously been a bit... Years and years ago, people have had a negative notion towards what we do, and I feel as if the UFC have really worked on making it an all-together sport. We are informed sport, so we get random drug tests all year round. Everyone gets drug tests at an event. We have healthcare when we fight, and they look after us after that. In terms of scoring system, for those who don't know, it's 3 5-minute rounds based on a 10-8 scoring system. That'll be the same as boxing, so damage and control will win you the fight. So it means if you get taken down but do nothing with it and just lie on someone, but someone's on the floor, elbowing the person on the top, the person on the bottom will probably win that time of the round, which people wouldn't expect. A title fight is 5 5-minute rounds. There's 4 Olympic disciplines in our sport. Every year it grows in terms of the style of play. So it'd be like football, it'd be like tennis when you're going on different surfaces. It'll be like indoor and outdoor in athletics. If you've got the wind or you haven't got the wind, or it's a different track. The style that someone can, how do I put it? Say when I threw that elbow, everyone started throwing spinning attacks. So for them 6 months, the style changed. Do you know what I mean? And it's a bit like football. Every couple of seasons, technical and tactical changes are implemented, but you have to change on the spot. You have to be able to answer these questions and overcome these adversities in the blink of an eye. One wrong step and you're finished. Do you know what I mean? And it's up to the referee's discretion when to step in. If you're in a position where you probably take 3 shots, possibly 4 shots, and you don't defend yourself correctly, or you look like you're a bit wobbly, the ref will call it. If you submit and tap, the fight's over. Some people who are purists and like boxing don't like how the fight can play out, whereas an MMA fighter would say, well, we don't take as much head damage and trauma as you guys, and we're fighting the best every day, whereas somewhat boxers can kind of fight journeyman to get to the top and things. Like amateur boxing is probably a lot more competitive than professional. But when you're floored in boxing to a headshot, you're concussed. And then you get up and you've got to continue to fight and maybe repeatedly take concussion. Whereas in MMA, normally if you get dropped, that's it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot less. I think we've had 1 death in the whole of MMA in the cage, and that was due to them making weight not correctly. It wasn't due to fighting. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's a lot safer than people probably think it is. Yeah.
And you've said it's that maximum or multiple of disciplines coming together. So in terms of your skill set, I guess what are you great at? And do you work on what you're great to make that even better? Or do you need to be fairly good at everything? Well, very good at everything, clearly not fairly good.
My strengths lay within my ability to push through pain barriers, forward pressure, and a vocabulary of striking. I'm the smallest person in my division with the shortest reach in probably the whole of the UFC. So some people who watch think, oh my God, all she does is come forward. But if I don't press them to the back foot and outmaneuver them that way, then they'll keep me on the end of their kicks, their punches, and I won't be able to get past it, you know what I mean? So I have to be completely ruthless in my pursuit of a win. And probably, to be honest, the training's a lot more harder for me to get the win, because I have to be on that treadmill, on them pads and them sparring rounds to make sure that I'm completely ready. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. If I could take you back to your kind of earlier memories, so what are your young memories of taking part in sport?
Not great, if I'm being honest. I think it's well documented that I was never allowed into boxing gyms as a kid. I'm 33 now. We're going back 20 years, 21 years. Just wasn't the done thing. Women, there's a famous woman, I'm not sure if you've had her on the show, she's called Jane Couch.
I haven't had her. I'd like to at some point. Amazing.
And yeah, she was like the first professional. She made professional boxing for women a thing. She won world titles, flew out to America, fought in Las Vegas. She's done it all. But like a decade too early.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like she paved the way for us to come through and combat sport, but in a sense of martial arts and combat sport. It started with karate, and that was very welcoming, family dojo. I didn't really like it because it taught me great discipline, but you wasn't really allowed to express yourself. It was like, no, follow this kata, and you were like following the movements. And when it was time to play, that's when I was ready to go, and like I was just a bit too rough and ready, I think. So I moved on to Thai boxing, which was like spiritual martial art. It's like you get into the ring, you seal the positive energy in, you expel the negative energy, you show ultimate respect, and then there's gamesmanship in between. Like you and your opponent can like outshine the other one before you've started. Like they do this thing like where they pretend that they like firing an arrow, and then the person will move out the way and come back with another like special taunt. Do you know what I mean? And then it's a real respectful,
like it's like spiritual sledging almost, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And then all I ever wanted to do was box. I mean, mum wouldn't let me, and neither would gyms. But by the time I was 15, 16, they let me in, and that's when I felt like things started to change. I got involved in football at like the age of 14, had a good go at that. Was very lucky, played some really, really good teams. Yeah, kind of it got better as I got older. My only inspirations I had were Olympic athletes like Denise Lewis, Kelly Holmes, until obviously the London Games, but I was 22 by then when Team GB absolutely shunned and peace out.
So why not football? Why did you not progress further with football or with your boxing? Because you won a world championship, didn't you? World title under 18.
National championship. Right. So I was an ABA champion, which to win that is like, it's like winning the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's the best national competition. My weight category didn't get added to the London Games, so I won it in 2009. Team selection was 2010. And 51 kilo, 61 kilo, and 73 to 75 kilo was added. And I'm 56. So 51 was too low and 61 was too high. And I thank God, because it was Katie Taylor and Tash Jonas in the 61 kilo. And it was Nicola Adams at 51. So they both done well anyway there. So I was playing football just because I was good at it. I love watching it. I go to the game all the time, but I never really see myself playing forever. I was actually at Liverpool playing for their women's team, and I got injured, and then I tore all 3 ligaments in my ankle, and I I wasn't the same player, and I think if you're not going to be the best, I'm not recreationally taking part in sport. I'm here to be the best. And I knew I wasn't going to make national team, so what was the point? Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I went to university to be a PE teacher, which no one would have ever expected, because they just see me as a big mouth who probably drinks bevies and fights. But yeah, my passion was then to coach. I tried teaching in a formal educational high school sense, and I'm just a bit rogue for that. If the kid was rude to me, I'd be like, who the fuck are you talking to? Do you know what I mean? But I was lucky enough at university to travel. I remember being 18 and I just went to America for the summer, and I was coaching for the Olympic Development Program in Virginia. Second year, I went to Africa volunteering, and I was working for the Special Olympics in Namibia, and I was working for FIFA as well. So I think it was 2010 World Cup was in Africa. They made 10 hubs, 10 football for hope centres, which were like a hub in certain countries. And I was working for the one in Namibia, and in the morning I'd go into the schools and work with the special educational needs kids, and they'd be like, right, we want you to teach them football. I'm like, no problem, where's the equipment? And he's like, it's that mud pitch. I was like, where's the balls, where's the cones that we haven't got? And I was like, right. So we'd end up like putting loads of sellotape together to make them balls. I was like drawing cones. And I was getting them to practice turns, if they could imagine that was the ball, and they was doing skills and just a bit more games and gamesmanship. And then at the night time, the kids who could play, we was getting good sessions in and playing with them. And it really opened up my eyes to, like, you need to do something really good with your life. You can't. This is disrespectful to teachers who teach in our educational system, but I can't do that. I don't want to sit there and write a curriculum out for the year. I want to go in and change lives, and I reacted and responded better to that style. Like, from my upbringing, I was brought up around drugs, violence, gangs, and I could step into that environment and hold my own, and the kids could relate to me. I was like a national champion who played professional football, so they weren't really like messing around with me. They respected me, which is like half the battle of being a woman. And then just as I was finishing university, I literally fell into MMA by accident, like literally by accident. So it's been a crazy journey from football, karate, Thai boxing, MMA.
And how did you find MMA? What was the kind of first introduction to the sport?
I think I started MMA 3 years after initially going into the gym. I'd gone in to spar a female MMA fighter. She was a grappler, so I went in with my hands and I just obliterated her really and thought, this isn't really for me. I watched the grappling, and then 2009, you're looking at a lot of steroid-induced skinheads just going for each other, do you know what I mean? And then I ended up watching a fight on February 23rd for one called Ronda Rousey in the UFC. I messaged that coach whose gym I went to. I went, okay, I want to have a go. And by the time I'd next gone in, it was full of kids and younger people, and it wasn't about aggression, it's about art form, it's about a journey. People won't understand the level and the journey. It's not about winning a fight, and it's not about winning a world title. It's the progression of the person you are from the moment you start. It's for the rest of your life. It's about making you a better human. Do you know what I mean? And I know it doesn't always look like that when you've got the likes of me and Paddy screaming in an octagon and everyone's throwing beer on us, but it really is. It really is.
You mentioned Ronda Rousey then. In terms of a sport, I think from the outside, it definitely feels like it's perhaps more gender equal than many sports where women are respected as they're competing. Is that what it feels like from inside the sport too?
Everyone is on equal pay. Everyone fights the same. Like, you have the argument in tennis still. I think like people sometimes just like, I don't think women should get paid the same because they don't play the same amount of sets and games. And I can understand that argument, but women would if they was allowed to, if there was time to. There's your difference. Do you know what I mean? But like, we fight 3 5-minute rounds. We fight in the same weight categories as the men. And I'd go as far to say as we fight harder sometimes because we're not allowed to, or we're not supposed to. A woman's place wasn't to be fighting in a cage full of people. So I'm very privileged to be in a promotion where sometimes takes a lot of flack for how they choose to pay the athletes. But I've worked hard and I've secured where I'm at, and I'm doing quite well now. So I'm happy with that. But the equality comes from everyone's treated the same. It doesn't matter like your religion, your sexuality and your gender, it's the same.
That's good. Good to hear, isn't it? And refreshing as you look across that experience of female athletes in other sports too. You did mention you've had a sort of tough upbringing in childhood. Are you happy to talk a little bit more about that, and I guess how that shaped what you went on to do and what you've gone on to achieve?
I come from a loving family who just grew up in a time in a city where there was not much to do other than a lot of crime probably and a lot of addiction, whether it be gambling, drinking or drugs. And it was not probably what you'd never imagine for your kids to have to live through. And I just remember being very young and always having a moral compass, like walking into being in my room, coming downstairs thinking, why aren't these people asleep? Why are people still partying in my house, like getting up to no good? And I'd come downstairs and look at these people and think, I'm talking 4, 5 and 6, there is no way I'm ending up like this. And my moral compass just knew, like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. And you're probably really born with this. But I was reading a book on emotional intelligence, just always trying to understand my trauma and why I am the way I am and why I dig deeper than most in certain positions or certain parts of life, I suppose. And it's because you're forged with what you go through. And I think the more adversity that you have to go through at a younger age normally means that there's nothing really that you can't manage to wiggle your way through as you get older. So, like, sometimes I get it wrong. I get through it, but I've acted incorrectly, or I've probably done something negative on the way to get out when I was a lot younger. But I feel like I wouldn't change one step in the journey of my family or myself. And I'm not ashamed of anything I've done or anything that my family's done, and I've had to bear that weight of that as well, because they brought me up with brilliant morals, to be respectful, to push the envelope, to push the boundary of anything, and they always made me believe I could achieve anything that I ever wanted.
It's fantastic here. And I did obviously I've done my research, I've watched the documentary, I've listened to you on the High Performance podcast. It was amazing. I would recommend it as a listen to others on the back of this too. I first met you at the BT Sport Action Women Awards, and I remember thinking at the time that you were incredibly humble and so modest with those other elite female athletes that are around, and yet in the ring you obviously are quite a different person as you come into the ring there. So do you take on a persona when you go in to fight?
I am a soft, sensitive individual, but when I get in that cage I use every bit of hate and pain and misfortune and the way I've been treated to outmaneuver my opponents and to hate my opponents.
I hadn't realised that you and Katie Taylor were cousins. So how important do you think it is that young girls and boys get to celebrate powerful, strong women like you and Katie?
Well, here's the funny story. My family left Ireland, my granddad and my nan, in like the 70s. So I didn't know that I was cousins or we was family. It's second cousin, it's like a distance, not first cousin, do you know what I mean? But I remember we was always really proud of being Irish, and if Ireland was on the telly, you supported them before you supported England. Like, that's what it was like, do you know what I mean? I was 16 in a boxing gym, and my coach Kevin had been to Ireland to do a camp for England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. I think it was the Four Nations. And he come back and heard like a VHS camcorder, and he's gone, look at this girl, watch how she throws, blah, blah, blah. It was Katie Taylor. And I was like, I box like that. He went, I know. He said, but she's the best that there is. I went, right, I want to be like her. Anyway, like 4 years later, my uncle Michael done a family tree because no one kept in touch, do you know what I mean? And then we found out that we was family. And I think it was only about 3 years ago that I've known for about 8 to 10 years, and I never wanted to just like jump on her and like try and people to perceive her for an insincere thing, do you know what I mean? But I remember I was coaching the English national team of MMA in the national championships. She just walked over next to me, and then I seen her mum, and I literally, my face went white, my bum was going, and I was like, and she walked past me into the cage to hand her a trophy, and my mum's called Bridget, and I went, hi, love, I said, I know you're a Cranley, Bridget Cranley, aren't you? She went, yeah. I was like, my nan's Maria. She was like, that was my auntie. Oh my God. And she's like, Katie, do you know who's a cousins? And she was like, that explains a lot, do you know what I mean? And
that's fantastic.
it's just, I'll go to fights, I'll see her. We don't really like speak. I don't think she really speaks to many people, to be fair, but to know that the bloodline's strong. And she made me laugh. She went, the women who handle it in this family, isn't it? Something like that anyway. I was like, yeah, it is. But it is important that she's inspired a nation, men, female. She's inspired the world. Do you know what I mean? Everyone wants to be like Katie Taylor, so yeah.
I do think the sport has a power. We were talking earlier, weren't we, in terms of me doing this podcast for years and years, but my nephews now, hearing that I'm interviewing you, being proper excited suddenly about the podcast. I'm talking to Molly McCann. So I do think there is that piece around younger men and boys who maybe see female athletes in MMA and really resonate.
It's a different light. It's a different sport altogether. Like, I think you'll understand what I mean, but I'm game. So everyone always says you're game, well, it's like you put me in anywhere and I'm coming. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think men, I can finish fights excitingly. That little boys are like, no way, because men sometimes don't even get that finished. Do you know what I mean? And like, my phone now is recording on top of a PlayStation with a game that I'm involved in, like UFC. I'm in the game, and I get tagged on socials every day of little boys doing my spinning elbow, and people go, yeah. Do you know what I mean? So
it's lovely, isn't it? So it's just important in terms of society's view of women and changing that too.
It's changing though, isn't it? I get trolled and hated just as much as a man, and I get loved and respected just as much as a man.
It's sad. You've got to be pleased with the negativity in terms of equality of negativity.
Well, yeah, Paddy used to get trolled a lot more than me, and our manager said, you need a 50-50 and then, you're like superstar. And I was like, right, I reckon I'm a 50-50 now. So I'm like,
yeah. You've obviously said, you mentioned you've had that huge success in terms of profile and endorsements. Were you ever concerned that fame and money might change the essence of you, of who you are?
No, because I never wanted it in the first instance, and I hate it. I'll smash an interview out of its head, like I'll give the best hour, 45 minutes of my life to anyone who wants it. I give as much time as I can to my community. I need the notoriety to make change in my communities. So I have to take it on the chin. I absolutely hate it. I hate the negative parts of it. I hate the fact that I'm in a fishbowl most of the time when I'm out and about. I can't get out the way everyone's kind of stares. Do you know what I mean? Even if phones aren't out, it was a lot of grief in my private life and my privacy. And the worst thing and the biggest lesson that I had to learn to overcome is and make peace with, not everyone's going to hear me out, and not everyone's got time to understand my truth. And when no one's got time for my truth, then I can't have time for their trolls and their abuse. Do you know what I mean? Like, you might not like what I look like, you might not like what I speak like, you might not like me for whatever reason, but as a human, to do what I've done deserves a bit of respect. Do you know what I mean? And I don't troll people. I don't support Everton Football Club. Do you know what I mean? And I never come after the players. Do you know what I mean? Like, even when they've had a rubbish game, it's just not the way decent people are. But
yeah,
I've just got to understand that. Someone always used to say to me, like, Molly, like, let your money wipe away your tears. So I realised I'm never going to speak like that and be like that, because that's just being an idiot. But I'm sitting at home, financially stable, with a life I've created for myself that I've massively overachieved, because this was never on the cards for me. Do you know what I mean?
And was there a moment, you talk about that kind of fame and being out in Liverpool and people recognising you and so on, was there a time at which you felt that switch happened? Was that as you moved into UFC with your British win?
Yeah, after me and Paddy had a fight together in Las Vegas, and not September gone, the one before, and then it was I couldn't move. It's hard in Liverpool, it's hard in Dublin, maybe Manchester, but I'd say like the rest of the world, you still get noticed. So sometimes you think, I went to LA the other week in Texas and I was like, yes, no one's really going to bother me, and it was every shop. But people in America really polite. It was like, welcome to Texas, Miss Molly. Oh. Like, it was nice to me, like walking down Santa Monica, like Boulevard or Strip or whatever it's called, and people are like, oh my God, it's the Meatball. And I'm like, oh my God, you know who I am.
And do you have support and coaching to help you through that? Because obviously that can really mess with your head, both the negativity and people knowing you.
No one teaches you this bit. It's what I say to, like, when I speak to Olympic athletes and footballers, it's like, you've been primed and prepped for this your whole life. Me and my friends and my team have just been dropped into a fishbowl, and it happened over the space of 6 months, and it took me about 8 months to be able to develop coping mechanisms to deal with it. Do you know what I mean? But like, done a really heartbeating interview with BT yesterday about my last loss, and 50% of the comments underneath it are like horrific. Do you know what I mean? And then you've got all people who are just like genuine people, like, fucking hell, get thrown a fucking bone. I've realised that reality and society is like completely fucked now. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you think about what we actually went through in COVID, and then, like, you can't be yourself and express yourself without people hating you for being. When did that become a thing? It's like 2 years ago. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I just can't get my head around it, so I don't choose to anymore. I think your human being generally tends to be a fucking male, and want to sit in your car in between jobs doing your scaffy, and you're pissed off at your own right because you're not where you want to be. Put the hate on me, mate. That's fine. You vent. You do what you need to do. It says a lot more about you than what it says about me.
And what do you do? Can you step away from it? Except, with the profile that you have now.
I've learned to step away from engagement of negativity. I can't not engage in kids coming over or people coming over for that. That's obviously, you don't ask for it, you get it, but that's staying.
No.
But I just didn't learn to deal with it. I just had to say to my fiance, I said, you can't get pissed off when this happens now, because it's like a domino to me. Like, I'm already uncomfortable, and then when you're uncomfortable, it's making me feel worse. So I said, this January, I just said, from here on out, I'm just accepting it. I'm just taking it on the chin, and I'm changing my mindset, because it's a blessed stress. It's a blessed stress.
Not heard that as a phrase before. I like that one, but you're right. It comes with.
If I didn't have it, I wouldn't be able to work for the charities I work for and help push that. I wouldn't be able to bring funds into communities and areas that need that. I wouldn't have this. I wouldn't be getting asked by the Labour Party and socialists to come to Enough is Enough rallies and help the unions. I wouldn't be getting that.
You mentioned your fiance then, so you announced your engagement to Ellis on New Year's Eve. So firstly, congratulations, and that's exciting and lovely. What was the response like? We talk about the social
100% perfect.
Lovely.
We were shitting ourselves, to be fair. I think it kind of ruined. The moment was amazing, and then we went to sleep and woke up and went, we've got to tell people. And for those who aren't different, and for those who are open-minded and just a genuinely good person, they'd be like, oh, shut up, why are you even worried? But you've not had to live like a couple of years of abuse. Do you know what I mean? So he was very nervous, and then the media and the tabloids picked up on it in like 7 minutes, and everyone was boss. Like, I wasn't expecting that, but yeah, it was okay.
So positive. And did you think that the presence of same-sex couples in UFC, so is Amanda and Nina Nunes are so loved and celebrated in the sport anyway, so do you think that kind of helped in terms of there was already that love and acceptance in the sport?
The sport is very accepting. You'll have the exception to the rule will normally be devout I'm saying this loosely, devout religious people who want to pick and choose what part of their religion they're going to hold on to. There'll be people who'll be going out drinking, having sex before marriage and all that carry on, but want to tell me about myself because I'm gay. I don't get my head around it, but I choose to just let them do them. And it doesn't hurt me to be trolled for being gay anymore. I still don't feel comfortable with it sometimes because I see it, like Pride's coming up and on the media tour, I'm just seeing a lot of people being like, oh, can you do this? Talking about being gay. And I thought, no, not just so you can have a soundbite for next month because you don't support us all year round. I'm not asking for support always, but we're always visible, not just the one day a year.
And last year you published a beautiful book for children, Be True to You, a story of coming out. So can you just tell me why you wrote it and what's the response been like to it too?
Yeah, so I really struggled coming out, really struggled. So I literally just wrote my story for younger people to read and not to force people out and not to glamorise being gay, to show people that this is what happens sometimes. And if it takes you longer to find your peace, that's okay. And at the back of the book, it provides a space for someone to like draw their stories. It was more for like parents or coaches who think that their kids are struggling. You're going to be okay. Like, you're going to be okay. I know people who've killed themselves for fear of coming out. I know people who've been killed for being gay in this city. I thought, before I'm dead, I would have fought hard for every community that I stand for, whether it's the place that I live, my fighting team, or my gender, or my sexuality. I'll try and help as best and leave the space better than when I found it.
That's fabulous to hear. And you've been, very outspoken in terms of social issues and equality, and you mentioned some of the groups that you're now working with. So is that something you'd like to use your platform more in the future? And obviously you've got a big fight coming up. I don't want to preempt any end to the career in the future, but what is it you feel you'd like to do beyond MMA in the future?
I feel like after, I'll end up opening a wellness centre and a pathway for my community to get the kids, get them ready to compete, train the kids in what I do best, and then probably filter them down to my gym to become professional athletes and represent this city. I feel like politics is probably something I'll be able to do a lot more when I'm not fighting. So I said I was involved in an Enough is Enough rally, and I had to make a speech there, and I just said, I'm not as quick with my words as I am with my hands, so it's going to take me a bit of time to be able to not bite and just be aggressive, but to outmaneuver with me words as opposed to with my body. So I think when I've got that down and I know the ins and outs of every policy, and I'm quick-witted enough to then do that, politics is something that I'd be involved in, I think, but for now it's just an activist, as positive as I can. And I just believe that it should be fair for all and not just a few. And I don't know, I live in an area I grew up here and I've just moved back here. Do you know what I mean? I've earned money and I've come home to live in my community where I was raised. So it says a lot about the people in them communities are really good. They're just not given an awful lot of opportunity. So, yeah. I've always wanted to leave this city better than what I found it and give back to it more than what I've took. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's really important for me. And that's the end goal.
Head over to fearlesswomen.co.uk to find previous episodes where I've spoken to other trailblazing women in sport. There are over 110 of them featured, including elite athletes, broadcasters, coaches, administrators, and CEOs. As well as listening to all the podcasts on the website, you can also find out more about the Women's Sport Collective, a free, inclusive community for all women working in sport. You can sign up for the Fearless Women newsletter, which highlights the developments in global women's sport, and there's more about my book, Game On, The Unstoppable Rise of Women's Sport. Thanks again to Sport England for backing the Game Changers through the National Lottery and to Sam Walker at What Goes On Media, who does such a brilliant job as our executive producer. The Game Changers is free to listen to, and you can find it on all podcast platforms. Do follow us or subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on future episodes. And if you have a moment to leave a rating or a review, it would be fantastic, as it really helps us to reach new audiences. Do come and say hello on social media, where you'll find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram and Facebook at Sue Anstis. The Game Changers. Fearless women in sport.